Hello friends, and welcome back to the Matt to Million channel. I can actually say now that the small account challenge is half complete. So I've actually hit the personal account challenge target. So I'm going to be running through that in this episode. And now what I'm going to be doing is looking at paying for a challenge and then trying to see if I can complete the challenge off the back of it to do this full 360 loop that has been fully vlogged on here and also on MYFXbook too. So stay tuned. I'm going to run through all of the stats and then I'm going to pick a trade from this period like I have done in the previous videos. And I am then going to run through it in a trade breakdown format so as I can give you an understanding of what my head was doing and why I was taking the trades. For those of you that are like, what the hell just happened? Where have I been for the last 4 episodes? I have no idea. You got to answer that yourself. But what I will do is I'll link up the first episode up here and the second and the third and the fourth as well. And it'll all be up here and you can go back and scale back and have a look through and see the journey, how it's consistently progressed and all the ups and downs and so on and so forth. But in short, basically what I've decided to do is take a small personal account at the challenge fee of a 10,000 FTMO challenge, which is around £145. I've bunged it in a personal account. And then from that, I'm going to try and develop, or I've done it now, but I was going to try and develop 50% in profits, and then I'm going to use that 50% as a good contribution towards that challenge, and then I'm going to see if I can complete the challenge. All of this stemmed from the fact that people often say, when are you ready for the challenge? And there's a lot of people failing them out there, and it surprised me how many people just weren't ever trading live and never had a live account, or if they did, they blew it, and there's almost this fear that if they put it in a live account, they're going to blow it. And to me, that sort of defeats the whole purpose of being funded in the first place. If you don't back yourself on a live account, why on earth would you back yourself on a more restricted funded account? But either way, this was the whole purpose of this. I'm glad that I actually got to the 50% target. I'm going to get cracking straight on with this one. As always guys, if you are enjoying the content on here, please give that little thumbs up a touch. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already and make sure that you've got the alerts turned on so you don't miss when I post my next video. And thankfully, the next video will be a change of scene because hopefully it'll be on a funded account. I've been doing these for so long that my screensaver's on. Anyway, let's get cracking. I've got my MT4 up here, so what I'm going to try and do is plot it here like I have in the previous video so as you can watch along whilst I'm doing it. I'm also going to change my screensaver because that's ugly. Okay, so now I've successfully changed my background so as it's more aesthetically pleasing, we can sleep tonight and also I can carry on with this video. I'm logged in on my MyFXbook on my phone here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot it here so as you can read it as I am going along. So the first one here is you might be going, hold on, he hasn't hit 50%. And you'd be right, because I've only hit 49.57%. And I got to this point and I was like, do I just say, do you know what, I'm there or thereabouts, who cares? I'm just, this is it. I'm now going to move on to the funded thing. But I know that there are those people out there. There are those people that would go, yeah, but what about? What if you didn't get that 0.43% that you said you were going to get? You know, maybe you blew the account after it or something like this. And so I knew that that was the case. So basically I went, do you know what, as good as this was, I decided to carry on. And I knew that I put the pressure on myself to make sure that I got to that 5.0 figure. So as we move across now, and you can see it here as well, is that the target was hit at 50.25%. So there we go. I was being very coy with this, in the same that you do get with the challenges as well, when you start tightening up, when you're getting towards the target and that, and you just want to get across the line, you don't want to do too much or too little and all this sort of stuff. But as you can see, there we go, 50.25% has been hit. Woohoo. And with this, obviously it was a real shame because you can see there that the drawdown during the middle there where I was a complete moron and ended up nearly blowing the account. So I got the drawdown on 33.16%. When I say blown, I didn't blow it, it just brought it back to where it was, basically ground zero. But nonetheless, all of these stats don't really mean as much. The big things here, obviously the balance being at £218.52, the profit being £72.92. The key thing that I do want to say here though is that actually on the previous one where I was on the 49, almost 50%, like figuratively in terms of the amount of profit I'd made, I had to hit 50%. It was because I'd held one overnight, or a few that had held overnight, so I actually paid out swap fees, and obviously here I think it classes it as interest or whatever. So with that, it meant that my percentage was just below where it should have been. And even though I knew that was a logical explanation, I know that there are too many people willing to type away on the keyboard and to try and take a poke at me. So there we go, that's why I carried on, but that's the rationale behind it. Anyway, moving on, we're looking at the growth chart here that I've shown on all of them there. You can see, you know, the rough journey in terms of where it's gone. You can see the shambolic movement that I took sort of in that mid-range, sort of around that sort of 35% mark and taking a chunk out of it. But from then on, you know, pretty plain sailing, you know, pretty educated in terms of how I went about it. And as we look, I've actually gone all out on this one. I've actually shown the balance chart as well. So as you can see in terms of where we started, obviously I mean, that doesn't actually look like 145, does it? But it looks like, anyway, that's where we started. And then the chart's gone up and you can see the same sort of trajectory in terms of the actual balance growth. And then the last one is the profit chart in terms of like how much we've made and the scale of the profit and whatnot. But that gives you a decent idea. So that was sort of, we started it back in mid-June. Say we, me, everybody says we, don't know why. But June is mid-June when I started, and then we're into July now when this target's been hit. Now, of course, I have hit this target now, which is great. And if we take a look at the stats, that's been 25 trades overall. Obviously, the average win being £8.27 and the average loss being £10.85. Obviously, that was skewed by that awful middle one that was in the last video, if you watched that one. But overall, the other things have remained pretty consistent. 71% of longs won, 75% of shorts won. That's the only thing that's a bit weird, because usually my shorts won are slightly less than my longs. But as you can see, like in terms of the difference of numbers that I've taken, there's 21 longs that have been sort of closed, and there have been 4 shorts. So, you know, that's in keeping. You know, I often say that I am a long bias trader, and you know, that just goes to show it. Best trade, again, we can't really take much from that because that was the bit where I was trying to balance it out from making that mistake. And really for the rest of the time, I mean, the average trade length now after all of those 25 trades was 10 hours, just under 11. So that gives you probably a good idea in terms of that monthly trade, in terms of like how long on average these have been helpful. But like I said in previous videos, that is skewed a tad just because it will include partials being taken. So if I'm in a position and I take partials halfway through it, that will class as, you know, one of the averages in terms of the time that's been taken. So obviously that can bring it down slightly. But overall, these stats, you know, are pretty good. And a lot of people obviously ask me as well in terms of how many trades do I take on average on a week or on a month or whatever. You can see here, with this, that was 25, but again, that does include partials being taken, I think, as well, not rather than just the, you know, just the, it's based on closed trades rather than open trades, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really use this all that often. But if we average that out roughly, it's sort of around 5 to 7 a week, is what I would say. So in terms of setups, probably 3 or 4 would be the answer. And as I've just done, like I've just clicked on the profitability thing, so I'll push it on here as well, just to show what the overall win rate was. So you can see that there's a 72% win rate overall, which is pretty much what I've averaged on all my accounts this year so far, which is, you know, it's been a great year with a lot of opportunity for sure. And then sort of 28% on the losers. So winning 18 out of 25, losing 7. And then just, you know, just to sort of finish that off, I've got the sort of monthly analytics thing here, you know, as I've done with the previous one. So you can see there that June, obviously we know, finished on 31.69%, and then July we finished on 14%. I'll say finished, like at the point of filming this, when I've hit the 50% target, I'm going to do 14%. And then also there's a thing where you can do it with the profit. So you can see there that in June £45.95 was made, and in July £26.97 was made. So there we go, they're all the statistics, and you know, that is the 50% hit. I am actually just, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get an extra 25% just to get it to 75%. That's going to be, you know, a key thing for me, just to see, you know, I don't want it to be that I just got to this. I want to show that it was consistency, that I wasn't taking any undue risks. Obviously you saw in the previous video, my average lot size has been 0.1 to 0.2. I've had to be very careful with the risk and the risk management around that as well. So in turn, I've kind of enjoyed this in terms of being able to do it, but it definitely has been stressful. So although I did give the advice, and I do still stand by the advice, I would say that, you know, you do have to have your wits about you, but I think that that is a good thing, you know, because if you can do it on a small account, if you can do it when you know, when your risk does need to be tight, then by the time you get to a funded account, surely, you know, you should be able to do it, you know, much easier than, you know, what you would have done before, basically. So with that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head across and I'm going to share one of the trades from this period. I'm going to break it down, run it through, so you understand my rationale behind what was going on in my head. You can see what the outcome was, and then I'll catch up with you a little bit later on. So here we are on the Dow chart, and we're taking a look at this trade, which is obviously a long, and I'm just going to sort of break this down. I'm going to try and sort of push through it just so as I'm not taking too long in terms of, you know, tracking it out. I know this has been sort of a fairly long-ish video so far. As I've explained previously, sort of as we've run through, quite commonly you get this drop, consolidation, V correction, consolidation on the Dow charts. So quite clearly my bias is long, and my bias is to at least fulfill back up to the top of this range at some point. You know, and for me, what I'm looking for is conclusive price action to break this level, and then probably come down. It'll either retest this one or maybe go higher. For example, if it's more bullish, could come down and do a nice little retest of this, and you know, I could get a decent trade that way too. So that's ultimately what I'm looking for in terms of bias, in terms of, you know, where I'm looking for the trades. It's pretty obvious and pretty straightforward, this one. as you can see, I get the push through as the price runs through, and then we get a nice sort of flurry of bullish movements. And this is the first point where you can see that it's starting to taper off a little bit. For me, this would be very, very close to this level if it were to retest that, or for you to class that as a retest or some sort of, you know, respect of that level to a point where it just springboard off of it. I don't feel that it's got the right structure for that. But as you can see, it keeps going a bit higher. But very, very, very slowly and gradually. And this is the first bearish candle. So for me, what I'm really looking for is taking a look at a trade sort of, you know, somewhere in and around this level. You know, something sort of along, you know, along these lines in terms of, you know, where we could potentially be brought in. Looking to bring the stops, you know, in and around the levels of the wicks down here. But to be honest, if this were to re-break this level, I'm not as confident that it would go long. So just giving it sort of a decent exposure to these wicks here. And that would be ideally what I'd be looking for, and then for it to go here and then hopefully sort of take on higher. But for me at this point, obviously I use a tiered risk management scheme that you can see what that is on one of my other videos in the channel. But at this stage, when I'm taking this trade, obviously I'm on a tiered risk, so I'm not taking one. So for me, this is a decent setup because it's congruent with the overall long bias that I've got on this based off of all of this price action. So for me here, it's pretty straightforward. You know, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, and if it just springboards off of this, then I'm not really that fussed either way. There's going to be plenty more opportunities than there. And as the price comes down, we get triggered into that trade, and it almost respects this level bang on the wick, as you can see. Hovers around there for a little bit, and then we get sort of a nice bullish move. And the good things here is obviously the clear rejection wicks at the bottom there, which is a good sign for me, because, you know, if you get full body closes around here, you could go either way. You know, it's sort of a bit more of a cause for put my teeth in, cause for concern. And it sort of hovers around that level a little bit more, and then we get that massive impulsive push through, and then eventually sort of trickles up and then takes us out for that take profit there. So this was a fairly, you know, straightforward move. In terms of, you know, onward, what am I expecting from this? You know, yeah, I mean, you know, it can sort of track around here and go along with, you know, so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is look, you know, this to me was a solid trade. I'm doing it to make sure that I'm getting steady gains on higher probability setups and whatnot. And basically, I'm just just kind of picking any of the trades that I've done in this period, just picking one of them and just running through it. And obviously, if people want me to go through more than one, obviously I can. You know, like I know that often these sort of breakdowns are the bits where I get the drop-offs in the videos, and I know that the hardcore fans like them. So I don't want to keep doing them, but maybe I'll keep them in this format, or maybe I should go back to doing them on a separate format. So I'll appreciate your feedback on that and what you would like to see. But that's pretty much it. So I'm going to hand back across myself to wrap up the video. Okay guys, there we go. That was the trade breakdown. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you've enjoyed this update, and I hope you've sort of found some value in terms of following me on this journey. Maybe it's inspired some, maybe it hasn't. You know, it's never going to appease everybody, and I'm sure that there's a whole world of different opinions and whatnot. But I just thought it'd be a cool thing to put myself out there, come hell or high water, if it worked or if it didn't, because at the end of the day, I'm the one sort of preaching in terms of what I think is the right move, but it's all well and good me saying it, you know, when I'm 10 years down the road, or when I have funded accounts and this, that and the other. So this was the real purpose of this series. This is now, we've reached this point where the personal account challenge has been reached. Like I said, I'm still going to try and push it, maybe try and get to a little bit higher, because they are quite buoyant markets at the moment. But then I will be sitting down, choosing a challenge to take. I know initially I said the FTMO challenge, but there's a few others out there that I'd like to take a look at, and potentially go with someone a bit different. So who knows? Stay tuned for the next episode, because that's when I'll be going through it. Hit like if you've enjoyed this one, and if I don't speak to you before, have a great week. Catch you on the next video. Take it easy.